I make my terminally ill mother give me $200,000 every time I visit her. Growing up in the suburbs, my life was pretty standard. It was just me, 31M, my brother, 29M, and our parents, Mom, 58F, and Dad, 61M. We were raised just outside Chicago, and our family was all about Michigan sports. Football and tennis were big deals in our house. If you wanted my dad's approval, which meant a lot since he was the man of the house, you needed to be into either football or tennis. In that neither of my parents were tall or broad-shouldered, tennis was the obvious choice. I liked tennis well enough, but I was more into programming and video games. I played tennis to stay in shape and made the high school team, but it wasn't my passion. My brother, on the other hand, absolutely loved it. He got so good that he earned a scholarship, which made my dad incredibly proud. While my parents treated us well, it was clear my brother was my dad's favorite, while I was closer to my mom. She shared my love for video games, and we could spend hours playing together. There was one big thing that made us different: money. Neither of my parents really worked. They took on small jobs at the school or tennis clubs to stay close to us, but that was mostly it. This was because my maternal grandfather had left a trust fund for my mom and her two sisters before he passed. I didn't know exactly how much was in it when we were kids, but now my mom's share is over $12 million. She'd used some of it over the years to buy a house and cars, but they mostly lived off the dividends, which are well into the six-figure range. There was one catch with the trust: only blood relatives could access it. So, while my dad had no claim, if my mom approved, my brother and I could have access. She always said she'd give us our share when we turned 30. Well, I'm over 30 now, and I haven't seen a dime. To explain that, we have to go back to 2019, when I found my fiancée, who I had been with since my sophomore year at Michigan, in bed with my brother. This had apparently been going on for months, and they didn't know how to break it to me. At the time, I had a full-time job working for a tech company and had just finished creating a video game with a friend. My brother, meanwhile, was a professional tennis player. When the affair happened, he was on a high after winning the Big Ten tennis championship in his senior year and making it to the French Open quarterfinals in his first pro season. Side note, he got crushed by Nadal, 6.0, 6.0, 6.0. Seriously, what a joke. But apparently, that was enough for my fiancée to toss aside our 8-year relationship. Off topic, but seriously, screw her. The fallout hit my brother hard at first. My mom lost it, calling him a disgrace and cutting him off financially. My dad, while more sympathetic, still supported her. Losing their support was a blow for my brother, as he had relied on them to fund his tennis training. Then, about 3 months after this all blew up, I got invited to a family dinner. I thought nothing of it at the time, but when I arrived, it was my dad, my uncle and his wife, my mom, my brother, and, wait for it, my ex-fiancée. I almost turned around and left, but my mom begged me to stay and hear them out. My brother apologized, saying he was in love and that he never intended to hurt me. It just happened. My uncle chimed in with his story, sharing how he and his wife had made similar mistakes. They had started their relationship as an affair. My dad emphasized the importance of family, saying we needed to stick together, while putting a hand on my brother's shoulder. My brother shot me this smug look, knowing he'd won. The entire time, my mom avoided eye contact. Finally, after listening to all their speeches, I turned to her and asked if she agreed with all this. With tears running down her face, she nodded. That's when I stood up and said, "Well, I hope you all have a good life, but I'm done with it." As I was leaving, my dad yelled that if I walked out, I'd lose my access to the trust fund. I stopped and asked my mom if that was true. Crying, she nodded and quietly said, "Yes." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "I'll never forgive you for this betrayal." She broke down into sobs, but no one followed me out. That was the last time I saw or heard from any of them, until about a month ago, 5 years of no contact. My aunt called and said my mom was in the hospital and desperately wanted to see me. I refused. She kept calling, and finally, on the 5th attempt, she offered $100,000 if I'd meet with her. I countered with $200,000 and a promise that my dad and brother wouldn't be there. She agreed. The next day, the bank called to confirm the wire transfer. Once the $200,000 hit my account, I called my aunt to set up the meeting. I went to the hospital, and there was my mom, looking terrible. Stage 4 lung cancer, the same thing her dad had. As promised, my dad and brother weren't there. We talked for an hour. I told her about my life. I had sold my first video game, and while it did okay, I was working on a second one. I also told her about my girlfriend of 3 years and how she was pregnant with our first child. My mom was thrilled to hear that. She tried to talk about my dad and brother, but I cut her off. At this point, she broke down, saying that letting me go was the biggest mistake of her life. She cried so much that the nurses had to check on her. It only got worse when I told her leaving the family was the best decision I'd ever made, and I had no intention of forgiving her. No amount of money, $6 million or not, was worth what they put me through. As I turned to leave, she begged me to help rebuild our relationship. I told her I'd consider visiting twice a week for $200,000 per visit, but only under the condition that there would be no contact with my dad or brother. She agreed, and in the past month, I've made $1,600,000. I don't plan to forgive anyone, and I won't attend her funeral, but I'll happily drain that trust to stick it to my dad and brother. 2 hours a week with someone I despise is worth it if it causes them pain. 9 months have passed since I last posted, and my mom passed away 3 weeks ago, about a month after my daughter was born. My mom got to meet my daughter. Though I wanted to charge $1 million for that privilege, my girlfriend said no, so I let it go. People often ask how my girlfriend feels about me charging my mom for visits. While she thought it was harsh at first, she gets it, especially since she's been cheated on too. Plus, most of the money is going into a trust for our kids, which I can't even touch. I don't want what happened to me to happen to them. And honestly, I don't even trust myself with that kind of money. In the end, I visited my mom 53 times and walked away with $10,800,000. Between that and her medical bills, the trust is down to less than $200,000. She died just in time because she couldn't afford me anymore. True to my word, I didn't attend her funeral or the reading of her will. I'm not too happy about that, though apparently it didn't go well because now my dad's lawyer is threatening to sue me for taking advantage of a dying woman. But I've got my bases covered. She signed everything, and she was in her right mind, or as much as she could be, given what her decisions led to. My brother's wife has been blowing up my phone, though it doesn't seem to be my ex-fiancée. Hilarious. She must have left him when his tennis career tanked. He hasn't made a grand slam since before COVID. So much for love. My dad has been trying to track me down, calling from different numbers and leaving messages, ranging from furious rants to pitiful pleas. Without that trust fund, he's got nothing. No job, no $401,000, no pension. He'll be working for the rest of his life, probably at some fast food joint. Actually, that's an insult to fast food workers. My dad's never worked that hard in his life. He couldn't even manage that. My lawyer thinks I might be able to get them to sign a deal promising not to sue in exchange for $200,000 each. That would be chef's kiss, perfect in a way they'll never even understand. I've given my lawyer the green light to move forward with the offer. Most of the money is going into the trust for my kids, but I did splurge a little. I bought a ring for my girlfriend and got us a nicer condo in Lincoln Park, which is where she's always wanted to live. Oh, and I paid someone to send my dad Ohio State jerseys with his name on them for the next 3 years, just to mess with him. I think this will be my last update. I hope you all are doing well, and remember, when someone betrays you, always be petty. Now on to the next story. Fiancée reveals she is bisexual after attending a wedding alone. Anna, 27F and I, 30M, got engaged back in January after dating for a few years. We had planned to tie the knot next year once we'd saved enough for the wedding. Shortly after getting engaged, we moved in together at the end of January. By May, Anna was off to be a bridesmaid at her friend's wedding. I couldn't join because of my job, plus it was a 5-day trip. Anna enjoyed reconnecting with old friends, but when she got back, she started acting distant and moody. I was relieved when she scheduled a therapy appointment, since she hadn't talked to me about what was bothering her. After about 5 or 6 sessions, she sat me down one Saturday morning for a serious talk. Anna grew up in a strict, conservative household where she had to push down a lot of her feelings until she moved out for college. Even then, she still struggled to accept certain parts of herself. At the wedding, she met the wife of one of her college friends, and it stirred up a lot of those repressed feelings during the days they hung out. She told me she realized she was attracted to both men and women, and that she was bisexual. I told her I was glad she felt safe enough to share that with me, and it didn't change how I felt about her. It was a really emotional moment for both of us. Anna then asked how I would feel about her exploring this new side of her sexuality now that it was out in the open. I told her I'd be open to us exploring it together, maybe even having a threesome with another woman if she wanted that experience. But she said she wanted to have a one-on-one experience with another woman without me involved. That's when I told her it felt more like cheating and I wasn't okay with it. I asked if she wanted to call off the wedding and take some time apart to figure things out. She was quick to say no, that she was still in love with me and wanted to get married but felt she needed to explore these feelings before we settled down. I asked if she'd done anything inappropriate at the wedding or cheated on me, and if there was anyone specific she was thinking about. She admitted she'd danced with a girl at the reception and they kissed at the end of the night, but insisted that was all. She denied talking to anyone or planning anything beyond that. She knew it was a lot to put on me all at once, and didn't expect an answer right away. She just wanted me to keep an open mind and keep the conversation going. I told her I'd think about it, but warned her that if I found out she lied or was doing anything behind my back, I'd be out, no second chances. One of my coworkers who's in an open marriage has been really helpful, sharing how they manage things. My brother also got me into a support group, which has helped me adjust to the changes in our relationship. I've been reading a lot, and on Thursday night I sat Anna down to talk about where we go from here. I found a couples therapist, gave her one of the books I finished, and suggested postponing the wedding for 6 months to see if that's still the path we want. I was in the middle of explaining everything when she suddenly asked if I was planning to date other people too. It seemed like that possibility hadn't even crossed her mind. After that, Anna kinda shut down, only giving me one-word answers when I asked her anything. The longest response I got was, "I just don't know." She's been like that for a full day now, lost in her thoughts, and I'm just bracing myself for the inevitable emotional fallout. I thought she'd be glad I was open to exploring this with her. Side note: my brother came out as gay when I was 16, and my parents were super supportive, so I grew up in a pretty open-minded household. Very different from Anna's upbringing. Update: by Saturday night, Anna snapped out of her fog and things got intense. She accused me of wanting an open relationship just to get back at her, saying I was being vindictive by planning to date other women. She said she was only asking for some grace to figure out her feelings. I told her she hadn't shown any real remorse for cheating on me and just wanted a free pass to keep doing it. I mentioned that some of our friends told me she'd asked them not to mention what happened at the wedding, so I'd probably never know the full truth, and I had to assume it was worse than she admitted. I asked her if she thought it was fair for her to be out there hooking up with other people while I waited at home like some lovesick puppy. Just happy to see her when she decided to come back. Things got heated, and we both said some pretty hurtful stuff after that. I finally laid out 3 options for Anna if she wanted to move forward with us. Monogamy. We postpone the wedding and start couples counseling. No experimenting. Once we're in a good place, we can move ahead with the wedding, but with a prenup to protect me in case she changes her mind or cheats again. Open relationship. We both date other people, allowing her to explore her sexuality on her own terms. After a year or so, we'll see if marriage still seems like the right path. If we're still together, that is. Full separation. She moves out and we each live our lives independently. If she decides she wants a monogamous relationship with me and I haven't moved on, we could consider option 1, but it would be a fresh start, not just picking up where we left off. Anna said she needed some time to think and decided to stay with friends for a few days. Before she left, I told her plainly that if she accidentally cheated while she was gone, not to bother coming back except to get her things. This morning, she sent me a text saying, "I'm so sorry." I asked what she meant, but she didn't reply, and when I called, it went straight to voicemail. I'm not reaching out again. I'll let her come to me when she's ready. On Wednesday, Anna went to her therapy appointment and talked about what had happened between us. I don't know all the details, but she called me on the way to her friend's house, apologizing for some of the things she'd said and asking if she could come home to talk. I told her to stay at her friend's place for the night. think about what she wanted, and then come back on Thursday so we could sit down and figure things out. We met at the house on Thursday and talked over dinner. We both apologized for letting things get so heated and saying things that were unfair. Anna told me that after talking with her therapist and her best friend, she'd decided not to pursue her bisexual urges. The idea of me being free to date and sleep with other people in an open relationship scared her, and she realized getting married meant more to her than exploring her attraction to women. She said she'd originally just wanted a free pass to see if she was missing something in life. I asked if she was looking for a one-night stand, dating a woman, or a full-on relationship, and she admitted she wasn't sure what she wanted. I pointed out that didn't sound very monogamous or fair, and she agreed. That's why she was choosing not to explore those feelings. Then she brought up the messages I sent out canceling our save the date notices for the wedding. She said she'd been getting a bunch of calls and was caught off guard by what people were asking, not even knowing what they were talking about at first. She was upset that I didn't discuss it with her before making that decision. I reminded her that she dropped 2 big bombs on me, coming out as bisexual and admitting she'd cheated, then left and wouldn't communicate except for a vague, "I'm so sorry" text. I only told people we were having issues and needed to postpone the wedding, but it seems rumors were already flying that she'd cheated. She quickly shifted gears, suggesting we could still get back on track and get married next spring. I told her no, that every time one of us would be out of town, I'd be haunted by the thought of her cheating, especially after everything that had come out. I suggested that maybe after some couples therapy, we could work our way back to a good place, but definitely not by the end of the year. And it would be unwise to start planning and spending money on a wedding when we don't even know if therapy will work. I also insisted on a prenup to protect my assets, future retirement savings, and any equity from buying a house. When she pushed back, I told her that if she planned on being faithful, it wouldn't be an issue. Just a way to give me some peace of mind. We've been going back and forth for the past few days. Anna wants to sweep everything under the rug and move forward with the wedding, saying that exploring her sexuality isn't worth losing our relationship. For now, we're back together and planning to start counseling soon. In a moment of clarity, I've realized I rushed into the idea of an open relationship to let Anna explore her feelings. But now I'm not so sure that's the right call. I think separation might be a better path. Basically breaking up, so we can both figure out what we really want for the future and if it's even with each other. It's not what I want, but I also don't want to spend the next few years worrying she'll change her mind or cheat again. What a rough week. Counseling started off on the wrong foot. We walked into the office and the first thing I noticed was a big pride flag on the wall. It became clear fast that our therapist was very much on Anna's side, focused on her so-called journey rather than the cheating. She barely touched on the fact that Anna had been unfaithful and instead pushed how I needed to better support Anna's self-discovery and her awakening. The session felt one-sided, with nothing about my feelings or needs even being acknowledged. The worst part was when the therapist kept piling on me. I looked to Anna hoping she'd stand up for me or at least say something supportive. She didn't. That was what hurt the most, and I just shut down for the rest of the session. Toward the end, the therapist tried to engage with me, probably realizing she'd completely lost me. On the drive home, Anna tried to talk, but all she got from me was sure, nope, and maybe, the only things I'd said in the session. This therapist was recommended by Anna's own therapist. The next day, I was at work when Anna's mom called, wanting to know why the wedding was postponed. She went on about how her family and friends had already started making plans. I told her to take it up with her daughter, but she kept pushing until I finally told her that Anna had kissed someone at a wedding, which is why we were putting things on hold. Then I hung up on her. Less than an hour later, Anna called me, demanding to know what I'd told her mom. I explained that I said she'd kissed someone at a wedding and that we were trying to work through it. I left out the part about her coming out as bisexual. I told Anna that she needed to sit down with her mom and tell her the whole truth, though I wasn't holding my breath. Then I got a text from Anna's mom telling me I needed to get over it and suggesting that I might even be partly to blame for not attending the wedding with her. It was this long rant about what I needed to do to make things right. I showed the text to Anna when she got home and told her she needed to handle her mom or I'd tell her everything the next time she tried to lecture me. Anna promised she would talk to her mom and asked me to give her some time to explain everything. This week, Anna has also gotten super protective of her phone. Big red flag. I unplugged her phone to charge mine, and she practically jumped across the room to grab it from me. Later, I managed to sneak a look while she was asleep, only to find she'd changed her access code, something she hadn't done since we got together. I checked our phone bill online and noticed a lot of long calls to a Colorado area code, which I found out is where the girl she kissed is from. I'm just mentally drained at this point. The lying, the gaslighting, feeling like I'm constantly walking on eggshells. Even when we've been intimate lately, it's like the passion we used to have is gone. It feels like I'm being love-bombed with empty words and gestures. We're supposed to go to a cookout at her parents' house tomorrow. I'm going to do my best to keep my cool and not say anything, but once we get back, I'm telling Anna I'm done. I'll let her choose whether she wants to keep the apartment or move out. She's free to explore what makes her happy, but it won't be with me. I've come clean to my parents and a few close friends about this whole mess. They're ready to help me with the move when I need them. My dad shot down my mom's offer for me to move back home, saying what I really need is a new puppy, not to be living with retired parents at my age. Honestly, now that I've made up my mind, I feel weirdly at peace. To everyone who told me so, you were right. It's time to move on with my life. Anna and I came back early from her parents' cookout. I'd planned for my sister to be at our place when we got back as a witness, but we had to wait a couple of hours for her to show up. Once she arrived, I got us all in the living room and told Anna I couldn't do this anymore. I was throwing in the towel. I said I'd lost all trust in her and couldn't see a path forward, and the best thing was for us to go our separate ways. Anna didn't understand why, insisting she'd been honest since confessing about the wedding. I asked if she'd been in touch with the girl she kissed, and she denied it. I then asked to see her phone, and she refused, saying it would violate her privacy and the privacy of everyone she talked to. So I pointed out the calls to the 720 area code and said I could just call it myself to see who answers. It didn't matter. It proved my point. I told her she could either stay and I'd move out, or she could leave. I also offered to give her back whatever she'd put into our savings for the wedding. She tried to get my sister to leave so we could talk alone, but I told her I'd been advised to have a witness just in case. She went from crying to furious, and it took about an hour and a half before we finally had a calm discussion about everything. But we talked until nearly midnight. This morning, Anna decided she'd move back in with her parents for now, so the three of us packed up her stuff. While we were waiting for her dad and brother to come help, she asked if we could try another counselor and give therapy one more shot. I told her it was pointless. I could never trust her again, and that's no way to live. Not much of an ending, but it's the only one I've got.